In December of 1967, a bridge collapsed in West Virginia, taking 46 lives with it. To this day, there are more questions than answers surrounding the collapse of the Silver Bridge. How did such a sturdy structure fail? Why was it built in the first place? And is there any truth to the Mothman sightings that plagued the town prior to the collapse? Join me today as we look into the collapse of the Silver Bridge, one of America's greatest mysteries. Before we get started, be sure to hit that like button for more videos. Also, stick around until the end if you want to hear about a special offer just for viewers of this channel. It was Saturday, December 15, 1967, and Point Pleasant, West Virginia was bustling with Christmas shoppers. It was a normal day in the small town of just over 2,500 residents. Families were out shopping for Christmas presents, eating at local restaurants, and generally enjoying time together. For many families, the trip would take them across the 3,000-foot-long Silver Bridge spanning the New River. The bridge had been here since 1926, and though it was nearing its 40th birthday, it was still considered sturdy and reliable. At approximately 5:20 p.m., the bridge was at its usual bustling self. People were walking across to do their shopping, couples were strolling across after dinner, and cars were inching along in traffic. Then everything changed in an instant. The roadway of the Silver Bridge suddenly gave way, sending 14 vehicles and dozens of pedestrians plummeting 75 feet into the frigid waters below. The disaster was immediately apparent. Of the 14 cars that fell, only 2 were retrieved intact. Most of the other vehicles were mangled heaps of metal that offered little hope of survival. The people who fell were even worse off. Dozens had been thrown from their cars and were now floating face down in the river. Many others had managed to escape their vehicles, but were now clinging to the bridge for dear life. As the shock wore off, chaos ensued. People began screaming for help, and others dove into the freezing cold water to try and rescue survivors. Unfortunately, there weren't going to be many survivors. Of the 137 people who fell, only 32 would live to tell the tale. One person on the bridge at the time later said, "I could hear people in the water screaming for help and dogs barking. I couldn't believe what I was seeing." An immediate investigation was launched into the collapse of the Silver Bridge. Officials knew that something wasn't right when they first looked at the wreckage. They knew that there had been no serious accidents on the bridge in the months prior, and there were no warning signs that anything was wrong. When they inspected the bridge further, they found the reason. One of the eye bars holding up the bridge had snapped, causing the entire structure to collapse. Eye bars are specifically designed to hold up suspension bridges, and while it might seem obvious that a bridge needs strong eye bars, this was a big problem. In 1926, the Silver Bridge was cutting edge. Suspension bridges hadn't been popular up until that point because of the difficulty of building them. The Silver Bridge, however, was built during a period of great innovation in bridge design and proved that suspension bridges could be safe and effective. But with that being said, the technology was still relatively new. At the time of its construction, the Silver Bridge was considered to be among the most advanced suspension bridges ever built. But as the years went on and more bridges were built, engineers began to realize that there were problems with the original design of the Silver Bridge. The eye bar that had snapped during the collapse was exactly the type of eye bar that engineers were talking about. It had a weak spot that could have been easily fixed during the construction phase. Instead, the weak spot had been welded over, a practice that is still seen as somewhat of a miracle that it lasted as long as it did. But while the investigation uncovered the cause of the bridge's collapse, it didn't answer why the eye bar failed. Surely an eye bar that had been identified as weak wouldn't have been installed in the first place, would it? Or was it installed but had been replaced at some point before the disaster? The answer is unknown. But as strange as that may seem, it isn't the strangest part about the collapse of the Silver Bridge. That honor goes to the events leading up to the collapse. In the months before the bridge collapsed, strange things were happening all over Point Pleasant. It all started in November of 1966, when a local woman reported seeing a large, hairy humanoid creature standing on the banks of the Ohio River near Point Pleasant. She described the monster as being 8 feet tall and covered in dark hair. A month later, a local couple claimed to see the same creature standing next to their car as they were driving down a deserted road. By January of 1967, reports of strange creatures were flooding the local newspaper office. Dozens of townspeople claimed to have seen a large, hairy man-like creature roaming the woods outside of town. While none of the witnesses had ever seen the creature during the day, they all agreed that it seemed to be nocturnal, often being spotted at night near the Ohio River. As the sightings continued, so did the strange occurrences. Power lines were knocked down, animals were found mutilated, and graves were even dug up and overturned. As February turned into March, things took a turn for the worse. On March 25, 1967, a local woman was driving home from work when she was nearly hit by a car that swerved in front of her. She reported the incident to the police, but they were unable to find the driver. On April 11th, she saw the same car again and called the police. An unmarked police cruiser soon arrived and told the woman that he was investigating the same car. He explained that several people had reported seeing a strange car matching the description of the one she had seen. Suddenly, the driver of the car swerved towards them, causing both police and the woman to swerve to avoid a collision. The police officer's car flipped, killing him instantly. The woman survived but suffered severe injuries. For weeks, the small town was gripped with fear as they tried to figure out what was going on. Was this a madman running around the countryside, killing people? Was it some sort of animal? And then it hit them, the TNT man. This mysterious creature had been terrorizing the small town, trying to warn them of an impending disaster. Locals had seen the creature perched on top of the Silver Bridge, and that's when they made the connection. Maybe this was some kind of cryptid that had somehow developed a vendetta against the bridge. But there was another explanation, one that was much more terrifying. Could the mysterious TNT man be the infamous Mothman? Sightings of a large winged creature had become common in the area. It was said to be as tall as a man, with glowing red eyes and immense wings. Some believed that the Mothman was some sort of harbinger of death, appearing before disasters to warn people of what was to come. Could the Mothman have somehow realized that the bridge was doomed and was trying to warn people? It wasn't just the Mothman that people were seeing either. There were also strange lights that appeared in the sky above Point Pleasant. These lights were often seen dancing around each other in strange formations and were rumored to be UFOs trying to warn the residents of Point Pleasant. Just as with the Mothman, these strange lights were seen in the days and weeks leading up to the disaster. All of this culminated in a single, horrifying night. Not only were there multiple UFOs seen hovering around the town, but there were also multiple sightings of the Mothman and the TNT man. No one could say for certain what was going on, but they all felt that something terrible was about to happen. Little did they know that their worst fears were about to become reality. In the aftermath of the collapse of the Silver Bridge, no one could figure out how or why it had happened. Sure, they found the weak eye bar, but that didn't explain why it had been put in place in the first place. To this day, no one knows why the Silver Bridge collapsed. But there is one theory that takes all of the paranormal sightings into account. Some believe that the strange occurrences in Point Pleasant weren't caused by some sort of alien activity or government conspiracy. Instead, it was simply a case of mass hysteria. After all, a lot of the sightings were reported at night, which would make it easier to misidentify shapes and figures. Additionally, a lot of the sightings were reported in remote areas where large animals could have easily been mistaken for humanoids. And while it's true that there were eyewitnesses who claimed to have seen the Mothman, there were also plenty of people who claimed to have seen it that just so happened to be on the payroll of the local paper that was running the story. We can't know for sure what was going on in Point Pleasant all those years ago. All we have are newspaper clippings, eyewitness accounts, and theories. What do you think really happened in Point Pleasant? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos. If you enjoyed this one, please hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.